And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Saturday mornings, flying weather graphic. Not too bad out west here. Areas of marginal VFR for the Bering Sea. With some VFR here over portions of the Aleutians. IFR here over the central interior, down into the Kuskokwim Valley there, right on down the Kuskokwim River actually to the bay, and into the western Alaska Range. Another swath up here from the Brooks Range out across the North Slope, and then a thin band here for the North Gulf Coast and into the northern Panhandle. For the afternoon, no change there with the IFR holding over the northern and eastern southeast coast. VFR for Prince of Wales Island, and areas of IFR with scattered areas of VFR across southern Alaska. More extensive IFR zone here for the Tanana Valley on up into the 40-mile country northward there across the Yukon River with the snow in that area, and also some IFR for the North Slope to the eastern Arctic coast. Marginal VFR here with a few VFR breaks over the western part of the state, but marginal for the eastern Bering Sea, marginal VFR for the western Aleutians. And that stays pretty much marginal for Sunday morning here for the Aleutians, southern Bering Sea, right on up along the southwest coast. IFR for the North Slope, IFR for the southeast or the eastern interior here down into possibly south of the Alaska Range or in toward the Talkeetnas, with mostly marginal VFR across southern Alaska. Some VFR for Bristol Bay, areas of VFR for Kodiak Island and the southeast coast. Really not much change from Saturday afternoon. For Sunday afternoon down that way, still some IFR up north, otherwise marginal VFR in areas to the south. Big area VFR now breaking out over the central and western part of the state here, right on down Susitna Valley into the western Kenai Peninsula, VFR, with some IFR lingering there over the Yukon Flats, also for the North Slope, and Fort Passes and Atuvik. Look for an IFR day tomorrow. Expect IFR flying conditions for Adigan, as well as Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR for Rainy. Windy IFR, Isabel IFR as well. And from Intasta, marginal VFR. Tanita looking pretty marginal as well. And Portage starting out IFR, becoming marginal VFR, so improvement throughout the day for Portage Pass. Chilkoot and White though, IFR probably right through the weekend. And for the freezing levels, not too much to look at on this chart anymore with the surface here right across the Panhandle there, as well as 2,000 feet, but the surface south of the North Gulf Coast, down across Kodiak Island, or just south of Kodiak Island, into areas south of the Pribilofs. And for icing, a band of moisture pushing considerable moderate rime icing into the western Aleutians, pushing as far east as Adak by Saturday afternoon. And then with the moisture and snow here over the eastern interior, look for some considerable moderate rime icing there as well. And that extends all the way up into the eastern Arctic coast. Otherwise, just isolated moderate, mixed or rime icing for the southeast coast. And looking at the jet stream, big trough of low pressure over mainland Alaska, well into the Gulf. That pushing the jet south and to the east here, cutting northeast there across Vancouver Island into British Columbia. Otherwise, out here to the west with higher pressure developing over the west central Bering Sea. Northerly flow here links up with westerly flow. Both these zones 100 or 70 knots. When they combine, they turn northwest at 125 knots, but staying south of the Alaska Peninsula. 9,000 feet north to south flow here over the eastern Bering Sea as high as 45 knots. Kind of splitting here as it crosses the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians, diminishing to 35 knots. Next front here, 50-knot winds in a narrow band along in advance of that front, pushing into the west central Aleutians, and maybe some 35-knot westerlies there for the northern Panhandle. 3,000 feet, pretty light winds here from the Arctic coast through the central and eastern part of the state into the Gulf of Alaska and the southeast coast. Along the west coast here, northerly winds, 35 to 40 knots there, actually from the Alaska Peninsula right on up to the northwest coast. And then along the DeLong Mountains there, light winds under the high pressure in this area. Southeast winds, 70 knots coming in with that front here, pushing in toward the western and central Aleutian areas. And with that storminess will be considerable moderate turbulence there from Atka Island westward out toward the Komodorskis. And also up here over the Seward Peninsula could be some mechanical moderate turbulence there for, especially for small aircraft, again, right over the Seward Peninsula with light to isolated moderate from Point Ley on the western Arctic coast right on down across the Alaska Peninsula.